everyone, it is me, Train, and today I will be covering what I was absolutely terrified of trying to cover. So yeah, here's the Emperor's Coven, going to be of the Amity's AU. Now, for what I have feared all along, the bellows of any AU. I have no clue what I am doing at all. Absolutely none. I've been fearing this. It's just difficult to turn characters into bellows because one, you have to drive them to the things that they are going to have to do, and two, for his initial characters to be swapped with, we don't know them well at all, and also they are only 3 of them, so I'm just going to have to pull the other ones out of somewhere or other. I think I'll be able to do a Dahlia for when Amity is the Golden Guard, but not gold, but maybe gold because there's only so many metals, but because Adalia was already willing to kill off all the poor people, so yeah, that's pretty reasonable to see how they'd become Velos. I don't have much going for Evelyn other than like a few themes, like over the theme of willful ignorance, the theme of false freedom and the illusion of freedom, which she gives the members of her coven. So I actually leaned into things that are a bit more wild witchy, as like to show and like a taking on of these things in a manipulative way. I used a lot of brown colours, making it have a bronze instead of a gold look, and a lot of shades of brown, which are very associated with wild witches. So it's supposed to be like she co-opts the aesthetics to try and look more trustworthy, and to try and blend in a bit more, and to try and make it seem like she's not making as drastic of a change that she is. So it's the more like she tries to be relatable than she tries to be, you know, as aspirational, although there is also a bit of aspiration, as we will get on to with Ida. This scared me. I was scared of doing this one. I had no idea what I'm doing. So with their character as a character outside of everything else. So I'm happy it's over now. Put it on 10 times speed so that I could speed it up a bit more so it could be over faster. So yay, onto Willow. Now onto Willow, someone who I actually had an idea for this time around, and I was actually pretty excited for her since I made like my first Amity AU video, which was my first video after I swapped everyone, because you really like the Amity AUs. They always come straight first, and Gus always comes dead last. Anyways, on to Willow herself. I was mostly excited for her because she'd probably be quite cool as a character generally, very different from Hunter. For Willow specifically, I think she's less of a gentle character, and by that I mean Hunter is shown repeatedly to try and actively avoid violence when possible, and Willow is not. She is very willing to stand up for what she cares about. And like with Hunter and Bellows, how his main motivation was care for his uncle, who he cared about, Willow's will be similar for Evelyn, and that makes her a big threat. And in turn, she probably would be a bit harsher generally during her arc, and a bit less accepting, because she'd actually probably believe in some of the stuff there, instead of kind of just thinking that being dumb is a good thing, which, if you pay attention to Hunter's lines, seems to be something that he very often goes on about. Though I could see her caringness leading to her wanting to deny the truth of the things in front of her, like Hunter very, very blatantly does. Willow will probably lean slightly less into ignorance, which Ida will end up covering a bit more to make up for, but probably lean a bit more into the theme that I'm also mainly giving Ida, which is a illusion of freedom. Ironic, since she's not the illusionist, but an illusion of freedom, since she can't see well. She can barely see, which is being made only worse by her missing eye. I was almost going to take both of them, but decided that would be a little bit too cruel. She still can't see without glasses, but she does use her talisman and her staff to sense the world through. And I think that it would fit into Evelyn giving her something that makes her feel more free in the staff, by giving her more of an easy ability to travel around and like go out and do things, especially in unfamiliar places. But she's also the reason that she's in this position a lot of times. Glasses would be easier, even though they're more difficult to be used in combat, which is why they are not present, and also to try and make her feel more trapped, and like her magic, Evelyn's magic, is the only solution. But eventually she ends up getting Clover, and Clover will help her see more until she ends up getting glasses finally, but she still has some issues with things like depth perception because of her missing eye, which fits a lot into the freedom that Flapjack represented in the actual show, which I just think is really nice and sweet. Unlike Hunter, who seems to learn that he doesn't have to fight so much anymore because he just doesn't as much later in the show, Willow will end up learning what she really wants to fight for, that she wants to fight for the friends that she ends up making, and she ends up making friends with Amity first, which I think is pretty interesting with the actual show, and kind of like flips the one that's being a bit more antagonistic, because Willow is the golden, or should I say bronze guard. Apologies for my lack of alliteration, it just speaks to my lack of creativity. I am looking forward to doing the drawings of her with her friends from you know, like in the bonding moments that Hunter has, but it's her with Amity and Luce, then Hunter, then Gus. I think that's the right order. No, it's the wrong order. It's Amity, Luce, Gus, then Hunter. And so there we have it, my take on Willow Park in the role of Hunter, the Golden Guard, within Amity's AU. Finally, we have Ida, who was actually the one I came up with first, and therefore the easiest one to explain. You may be wondering that since Ida and Lilith are so very different, and the fact that Ida absolutely hates the Emperor's Coven and embraces freedom and individuality, then this would be extremely difficult. But eventually I ended up coming up with the idea of an illusion of freedom. So basically, since you can use all the different types of magic in the Coven, in this case it's more presented as being freeing than trapping, and will do things to try and convince members of their freedom, often by comparing it to the lack of freedom of the other people around them. On top of that, Ida is a very prideful character. She's prideful in her abilities, and it would probably be pretty easy to feed that pride, especially with like the slight how she'd act like she knew better than a lot of the people around her that fell into the traps that she didn't. This is if she did fall into those traps but believed that she was in the right and that the other side were the wrong ones. So her and Lilith's arc normally are her arc as Lilith is extremely similar to the one in the show, with the cursing and all the other stuff, except her attitude is a lot different. She thinks that she is free, and she tries to convince Lilith to join the Emperor's Coven because she sees it as more free than being wild, ironically, and tries to bury her feelings of guilt with an illusion of pridefulness by acting more prideful and like more telling them what to do so that she can ignore the guilt that comes from cursing her sister. By the finale of season 1, she ends up sharing the curse and stuff and admitting to what went wrong. She accepts the truth wholeheartedly and becomes a wild witch, and slowly discovers it much more freeing than the false path to freedom that she had been offered before. She then starts to become her truer self that we know from the actual show. Her pridefulness is toned down to a more reasonable extent now that she's not using it to try and cover up feelings of guilt and trying to feel more free despite not being as free as she thinks, and denying that because that's not something that she wants, tying into even more to the themes of willful ignorance than Lilith does in the show, but like fitting in with some of the other characters, like that theme with Bellows and Hunter Now on to Ida's design, because this is what like the main idea mostly came from, and I really put a lot of thought into it. She is of course wearing the signature red colour and a similar dress to her own, but mixed with Lilith's one, making it longer and stuff. But the more interesting design aspects are things like the cuff-looking bracelets and necklacey thingy is made to try, and the chain around her waist, which isn't very visible, but it will be when I start to colour it over a bit more, are supposed to symbolise both being trapped in a gilded cage of not knowing. Her hair is free and wild, yet there's a slight hint of it not being as much herself and as free and true as it normally is, as it is dyed a blonde colour, even more so like fitting into the theme of gold. A slightly later idea that I only really came up with after doing the colouring stage, but I was kind of thinking about it before it, I just didn't draw it into the sketch, was to give her a few more chains to emphasise the idea of being trapped in the colour gold, because it's like a gilded cage again, to make it look a bit more like a bracelet and also being trapped. And I'd actually embarrassingly completely forgot to give her sleeves beforehand, so now I actually drew these into the sketch, I just forgot to draw them, so now I am drawing them in. They're supposed to look kind of like wings, but they're supposed to look kind of like wings that have been clipped short, showing like how wings are often associated with things like freedom, but it's symbolizing how Ida thinks that she is free, but the emperors, or in this case empresses, I kind of forgot about that. When I usually call it the Emperor's Coven, you know, that's because it's how it's like in the show, so if I mess up and completely forget about who's Bellows again this time, it's just because I'm thinking of regular Bellows instead of the other version, which I'm very scared of. Please give me advice for what to do for them. Anyway, the clipped wings are kind of supposed to show how her freedom is actually being stifled by the Emperor's Coven, not being supported by it like she thinks. Also, it looks really cool and very in character for Ida, this whole outfit. I just really, really, really like it. It's one of my favorites, like put it up there with my design for Hunter in Willow's AU, and those two are like some of my favorites. I can't remember all of them right now, but those are the ones that like stand out as ones that I'm really, really proud of. I actually kind of loved the shading on the metal solely because I actually had no idea what I was doing and didn't think they would go as well as it went. I had very low hopes, which were easily superseded by the actual metally looking metal instead of not metally looking metal, and I just like shading. It's one of my favorite parts because I just like it. It's fun and cool, and it can look really nice sometimes and not nice other times. I just like it. And so that concludes Ida Clawthorne as Lilith, and as a result, the rest of the Emperor's Coven, excluding background characters and the ones in the Cats and also Kikimora. So there we have them. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave a nice comment. Tell me whatever I should do with the Belloses, because they are absolutely terrifying me. I'm very, very scared of them, especially since, like, if you go with the, like, original backstory ones, then that's only 3 for 5 AUs, and if I include Adalia because I can, then that is only 4. So on top of that, also tell your friends, all the other stuff I already said. Please, 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 please.